We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Amud Beis in Meseches Shevuos. This is Shevuos Daf 30b. On the previous summit, the Gemara said that Rav Ula had come before Rav Nachman for a court case, and Rav Yosef told Rav Nachman that you should know Ula is a colleague of ours when it comes to Torah and mitzvahs. And Rav Nachman wanted to understand, why is Rav Yosef giving me this message? It can't be that I'm supposed to treat him more favorably in the court case. You have to treat both litigants equally. And so Rav Nachman understood the reason why he was being given this message was in case he had two cases that were coming before him, so he should take this case first, because you're supposed to take the case of the Talmud Chacham first. And the Gemara continues, Inami, or the reason why I'm being given this message is L'shuda Dedaini. Sometimes you have a case where the verdict of the case is really just up to the discretion of the judge, and in that situation you can take into account that one of the litigants is a Talmud Chacham. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ula says, Machlokas bebali dinim, the machlokas about standing up. We had a machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chacham on the previous summit, whether the bali dinim have to stand up or not during the case. That is a machlokas only by the bali dinim, by the litigants. Aval be'edim, but when it comes to the witnesses, divrei hakol ba'amida, everybody agrees the witnesses should stand up, tichsiv, because it's written in the pasuk, the amdu shnei ha'anashim, that the two men, they stand up, and we already said in the previous summit that part of the pasuk is a reference to the witnesses. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Huna says, Machlokas b'shas masa umaton. The machlokas in terms of the litigant standing up, that's during the proceedings of the court case. Aval b'shas gemar din, but at the time of the verdict, divrei hakol, then everybody agrees, dayonin b'yeshiva, that the judges, they sit down, ubali dinim ba'amida, and the litigants, they stand up. Tichsib, because it's written in the pasuk, it says, Vayeshev Moshe lishbot esa'am, vayamod, that Moshe was sitting, it says the people were standing, and so therefore you understand again that it's the judges who sit and the bali dinim, the litigants, they stand up. And the Gemara continues, Lishna Achrin, another version of what we just said above, Machlokas b'shas masa umaton, the machlokas of whether the litigants stand, again, is during the court proceedings. Aval b'shas gemar din, but at the time of the verdict, divrei hakol, everybody agrees, dayonin b'yeshiva, again, that the judges sit down, ubali dinin ba'amida, and the litigants stand up. And how do we know that? Ha'edim, because when the witnesses testify, ke gemar din damu, that's similar to the verdict, because for the witnesses, that's the end of the role that they play in the case. And it's written by them, that they stand up, and so therefore we understand certainly the litigants at the time of the verdict, they are supposed to stand up. And the Gemara continues, Devisu de Rav Huna, the wife of Rav Huna. Now Rashi says this is Devisu de Rav Huna mishameis Rav Huna. This is the wife of Rav Huna after Rav Huna died, so she's a widow. So Havalodina Kame de Rav Nachman. She had a court case before Rav Nachman. Amar, he said, Hechi Navi. He said, what exactly should we do? Because the halacha is that you have to give honor to a Torah scholar and also to the wife of a Torah scholar. So he wasn't sure what to do here, because he said, if I'm going to stand up in front of her, Mistatman Tanas, the Baldina, so then the other litigant, he's not going to be able to present his case well. He's going to think that she is being favored. But lo mikama, but if I don't stand up before her, so Eishes Chaver Hareika Chaver, the halach is that the wife of a Chaver, of a Torah scholar, is like a Torah scholar, and really you're supposed to stand up in front of her. And so the Gemara says, Amar le l'shami, so instead he said to his attendant as follows. He said, Tseva efrach olai bar avza, go and come close to me, fly towards me the geese, v'shadi livoi, have them come upon me, v'ekum, then I'm going to have to stand up. And then when I stand up, it's not going to be clear that I'm standing up for her. Maybe I'm standing up because these animals, and so that way the other litigant is not going to be upset by him standing up. Rashi explains, Efrach olai bar avza ve'emod, again, you'll have the geese fly towards me and I'll stand up, v'lo yavin zeh, and so the other litigant won't realize shebeshvila amarti, that I stood up for her, and ho'evos haporech, u'va'el, he's going to think that I'm standing up because of the goose that's flying towards me. And the Gemara continues, V'ha'amar mar, but didn't the master say, and Rashi understands that the next question of the Gemara really is just a question in general, the story we just said, didn't the master say, Machlokas b'shas maso maton, that the whole machlokas in terms of standing is at the time of the court proceedings, Aval b'shas gemar din, but at the time of the verdict, divrei hakol, everybody agrees, dayonim b'yeshiva, ubali din in ba'amida, that the dayonim, the judges, they sit, and the litigants, they stand. And so the question of the Gemara just is, however is a judge able to give respect to one of the litigants? Let's say the litigant is a Torah scholar. It's not possible impossible. The judge has to sit down. So how do you navigate such a situation? And the Gemara says, the Yosef command the Shari Masani, what he can do is he can sit in a way as though he's undoing the strap of his sandal. And Rashi explains, Hadayonin bi yeshiva, again, the judges are supposed to sit, so if a judge wants to give honor, how can he stand up? He wouldn't be able to stand up. Umeshani, and the Gemara answers, the Yosef, kolomar lo omed v'lo yoshev, the Gemara simply means, in such a situation, he shouldn't stand, but he shouldn't sit either. Elakadam sheyader haritzu min hasandal, he should be like when a person is untying his strap, he's kind of not sitting or standing. That's what the judge should do in such a case. And the Gemara continues that at that time that he's neither standing or sitting, v'amar, then he'll say, ish ploni ato zakai, ish ploni ato chayiv, so-and-so you are innocent, so-and-so you are guilty, meaning to say at that time he will give the verdict in that way. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna says, Haitzor b'mei rabbonan v'yama oretz, let's say you have a Talmud Chacham and you have an Amma Oretz, the isluhu dina b'hadei hadadi, let's say they have a court case with the other, mosvinon lei letzor b'mei rabbonan uli am ha'oretz nami amrinon lei tiv. What we do is we have the Talmud Chacham, he sits down, and we tell the Amma Oretz, you also can sit down. So that way we treat them both equally. V'ikoi les lanban, if he decides that he wants to stand, that's not an issue, because we gave him the same opportunity to sit down as we gave the Tzur b'mei Rabbanan. And the Gemara continues, Rav bar Sharavia havale dina kami de Rav Papa. Rav bar Sharavia had a case before Rav Papa. Osve v'osev nami lebal dina. So he had him sit down, and he had the other litigant sit down as well. Also shlicha de beidina. But then what happened was the bailiff, the shliach of the court, he came and bata ashbei v'ukmei la'amoritz. He kicked him, and he forced the amoritz that he should stand up. He shouldn't be sitting down. That's something only for a Torah scholar. V'lo amar le Rav Papa tiv, and Rav Papa didn't say anything about sit down. And so the Gemara says, hey, well, how did he do that? If he's going to have this one sit and the other one stand, isn't that going to confuse the other litigant's arguments? He's going to be thinking that the other litigant that he's against has preferential treatment. And the Gemara says, no, Amar Papa says, Meimar Amar Iu ha'osvan shlichuhu de lo mefayis minoi. The person's going to say to himself, really, they had me sit down as well, and it was only the shliach, and he was the one that didn't agree to this, but he's not going to think to himself that the other litigant is getting preferential treatment. He'll understand that the judge allowed both of them to sit. It was just the bailiff who was the one that did not allow it. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rabba bar Rav Huna, and Rabba bar Rav Huna says, Haitzor b'mei rabbonan v'yama oretz dislu dina b'hadei hadadi. Let's say again you have a Talmud Chacham and Amma Oretz, they have a court case with one another. Lo likdom tzor b'mei rabbonan v'leisev, the tzor b'mei rabbonan, he shouldn't come early and sit with the judge. Let's say they learn together. Mishum demichzi command desadar le'ledina, because then it looks like he's arranging his arguments earlier before the case, and the other litigant will be upset by that. V'lo amran ela de lo kavia le'idne. Now that's only true if they don't have a fixed time for learning. But if there's a fixed time where this tzor b'mei rabbanan always learns with his judge, les lanba, then that's not an issue, because meimar amar be'idnei tard, because then the other litigant will simply say that it was just a fixed time that they were learning together. V'yamar Rabba bar Rav Huna, and Rabba bar Rav Huna says, tzor b'mei rabbanan diyada b'sahadusa. Let's say a tzor b'mei rabbanan, a Talmud Chacham, he knows certain testimony. V'zila be'milsa l'meza le'beidayna dezuter minei. However, it's considered to be disgraceful for him that he's going to come in front of a court, and the judge on this court is actually a lesser stature than he is. Lasude kamein, he's going to come and testify in front of this judge. That's something that goes against his dignity. So lo lezel, so then he shouldn't go in such a case. He does not have to go and testify. Amar Rav Shisha b'rei Ravidi, Rav Shisha, the son of Ravidi, said, Afanon nami tanina. We learned this in a Mishnah as well, in Baba Metzia, by Hashavas Aveda, Matzah sak o kupa. Let's say a person finds a sack or a basket, ve'ein darko litol, it's something that it's not proper derech eretz that he would take that. Hareza lo yitol, he doesn't have to take that, even though there's a mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda, but it's beneath his dignity to take that item. And so the same thing is true in the case of testifying in a court, that it would be beneath his dignity. But the Gemara says, Hani mili b'mamona, but that's only true by monetary situations, monetary cases. Avol b'isura, but let's say the case involves an isser, involves prohibition, so then already he has to get involved. Ein chachma ve'in tavuna ve'in etzel neged Hashem. There is no wisdom when it comes to going against Hashem, meaning kol makom sheyesh bo chil Hashem, meaning any time there might be a desecration of the name of Hashem, ein cholkin kavod l'rav, we don't give kavod to the Rav, meaning to say we don't say that his dignity will prevent him from getting involved. He has to get involved if there might be a chil Hashem. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Rav Yemer have a yarda le'sahadusa le'mar zutra. Rav Yemer knew some testimony from Mar Zutra. Also lekame da Amemar, he came before Amemar, and ozvinu lekulu. They sat them all down, even though he was a witness, but they wanted to give him covered. You don't make such a person stand up, so they sat down everybody. Amar le Rav Ashi le Amemar. Rav Ashi said to Amemar, v'ho Amar Ula, but didn't Ula say machlokas bebali dinim, that the machlokas is by the litigants in terms of standing or sitting? Avol be'edim, but when it comes to witnesses, divrei hakol ba'amida, everybody agrees they have to stand. So how can it be that they had him sit down? Amar Le said back to him, Hayaseh v'hayaseh, but that's a positive commandment. But this is also a positive commandment to give respect to the Talmud Chacham. Aseh d'chvod Torah adif, the positive commandment of honoring the Torah is actually preferred, and therefore we have to follow that. That's why it's better that they should sit down. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Minayin l'dayin shelo yasa sanigron l'devarav. How do we know that a judge, he shouldn't make like a defense for his words? Let's say he knows that what he was ruling was actually mistaken. He shouldn't try to find some kind of defense for what he said. How do we know that? Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says, Midvar sheker tirchak, you have to stay far away from a lie. Uminayin l'dayin shelo yeshiv Talmud bor lefanav. How do we know that a judge, he shouldn't have a student who is an ignoramus, he shouldn't have that person in front of him during the court case? They used to have students in front of them, but it has to be a student who's qualified. Again, Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says, Midvar sheker tirchak, you have to be far away from a lie. Minayin l'dayin sheyodei lechaveru shu gazlan. How do we know if a judge knows that his colleague, the other judge, is a thief? V'chein eid, the same would be by a witness. Sheyodei bechaveru shu gazlan. He knows that his friend, who's the other witness, is a thief. Minayin shelo yitztaref imo. From where do we know that he shouldn't join together with him as a judge or as a witness? Again, Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says, Midvar sheker tirchak, you have to stay far away from a lie. Minayin l'dayin sheyodei bedin shu meruma. How do we know that, let's say, a judge knows that the court case, that as it's happening, there's something fraudulent going on in this court case? Shelo yomar, he shouldn't say, Hoel v'edim mi'idim. Maybe he shouldn't say to himself, well, since the witnesses are testifying, I'll just accept it even though I know that what they're testifying to is fraudulent. But since the witnesses are saying it, I'm going to follow the din according to what they're saying. And then we'll let the guilt be upon the witnesses. How do we know that he shouldn't say that? And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph.